Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Simply Sada series, episode 24. My name is Basit, and I'm a user experience designer at Sada Pay. And thank you so much for coming along today to talk about service design. And we are super, super excited to be here today. And we have Manahil with me. Thank you so much, Manahil, for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Manahil, do you want to
Thank you.
introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Basit, for inviting me. This is very exciting for me as well. I am a designer. I have studied industrial design from School of Art Design and Architecture in NUST in Islamabad. After graduating, I've been practicing design research and service design for the past 4 years. And I've also been dabbling a little in UX design. I have also taught service design at Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture, and currently I am a full-time design lecturer at Habib University, where I teach, among other things, service design to communication and design students.
That's really amazing. And it's an
Thank you.
honor to have you here and to host you. So, first, let's talk about the term service design and what it actually means and how it is different from the product design.
That's a very good question, and that's something that I get asked often as well. And the thing is that nobody needs to be intimidated from the word service design. It's not something alien. It's something that often, as designers, we are practicing inherently, but we have often not given it a certain term. So basically, service design is about thinking about a holistic user experience. What holistic means is that you don't look out, you don't ignore any part of the service. If a service includes a digital product as well as other aspects around it, maybe phone calls or call center, or maybe you going to an outlet somewhere, you make sure that the experience of a particular user or a customer is very good in all those touch points, whether they're digital or not. And secondly, service design is about efficiency and a good user experience of internal stakeholders as well. So when internal stakeholders who are delivering the service to a user, when they are happy at what they're doing, they're managing their tasks efficiently, then automatically the service becomes better. So if I may also share my screen, I want to use a visual that might help. Can I go ahead and share?
Of course, of course.
Thank you. So is it visible?
Um, I think it's coming, it's loading. Yes, it's visible to me. Yeah.
Awesome. So when as you asked about the difference between product design and service design, so this is a small visual that I often like to use. When we talk about user experience design or product design, we are focused on the product itself. So there's a lot of stuff happening inside it. So even though user experience may mean a lot of things in our industry, especially in Pakistan, often user experience is just restricted to a person's experience with an interface. So if you talk to majority of the UX designers anywhere, they're some of them are often practicing service design without knowing it, but a lot of them are also just looking at the experience within the screen,
Exactly.
and they don't care कि अच्छा बाहर क्या हो रहा है. They don't care what how the customer service person who is sitting in a call center, how they interact with their user. They just care about what's happening within the screen. So that's where UX and product design comes. Then the next step is service design. So service design is where you are looking at the overall service. So you are looking at all the internal stakeholders, who are the different departments involved. How is their work related to each other? How can we make sure that they don't work in silos? Rather, they work in a way where everything is transparent and they all are working
Interconnected.
collaboratively. Yes, exactly. Everything is interconnected and they are working collaboratively to give a better user experience to the customer. Then it's also about various relationships and hierarchies within an organization. It's about policies, it's about the infrastructure that's there, it's about budgets and the number of positions that are open. So a service designer is not just designing a digital product. So if I come as a service designer and work with a bank, for example, the designs that I come up with after researching will not just include a digital product. That might include a policy change. That might include me telling them that you need to hire more people in this department, or maybe you need to restructure this department, or maybe I'll tell them that you need more budget with a certain department, or maybe I might give some spatial layout changes. For example, in a bank's branch or in a certain office, I might say that you may redesign the space so that it becomes more efficient. So a service designer is often doing a lot more things just than the screen itself. And then there's
Exactly. Those things which are mostly neglected.
exactly. And then there's systems design. I'll just briefly touch about it. So systems design is one step ahead of service design, where we're looking at the relationship of various services with each other, and also the relationship of these services with the society, with people, with culture, with the government. What are the policies that the government is making? Then the external factors like technology or climate and environment. Maybe what
Dependencies.
exactly what other countries are doing, what other cities are doing. So if I take the example of fintech, or a bank, uh, the app of the bank is the UX part of it. Then how when you go to a branch, how do you get a token? How do you interact with somebody? How does all of if you have a complaint, how does that work? If your check is bounced, how is all of that experience? If you go to open an account, how is that experience? That is all service design. But systems design may a lot more things come in, like the relationship between other fintechs like Sada Pay and the bank and the state bank and the government overall policies, and then other fintechs around the world. What are they doing? So all of that is then a very larger picture. So I hope this helps, and I have another visual as well.
Process for everything, actually, for
Yeah.
every module and every part of
Yes.
the company.
Exactly. And but what is similar between all three of them is that we are talking about choosing the right problems to address. वो हम product design में भी कर रहे होते हैं, service design में भी कर रहे होते हैं. Then we do research, we find the right problems that need interventions, and we are using our creative thinking. So that's something that's similar for whether you practice UX design or product design, or if you practice service design.
So it basically means that those part of the designs and those part of problems when we are growing in a large company or corporate that are actually neglected. For example, if you have a complaint, and so what usually happens is that when you call to a complaint number, and you get a that pre-recording that press one for this and press two for this, and that whole basically it just wastes your time, your two three
Exactly.
4 minutes. And in the end, your actually problem is to the solution is to talk with the customer experience guy, and that's it. But you
Yeah.
waste that time of your customers, and nobody thinks of these kind of processes, and these are actually
Exactly.
neglected.
Exactly. I
Got it.
completely agree.
Got it. So you why are most people unfamiliar with the discipline of service design, and they're actually more kind of reluctant to this term service design, and they just neglect it anyway?
So I think there are many factors involved in this. One is that service design overall in the world compared to graphic design or industrial design is a much newer field. So say,
True.
even though some aspects of it were started in the 90s, it's basically 1990 onwards that service design came to be, slowly started to be a very formal discipline. And there's less literature about it as well if you compare it to interaction design or graphic design or industrial design. So that's one aspect of it. Like even the interaction design foundation, it's only last year that they added a course on service design. Before that, there are
Yeah.
just courses on UX design and design research. But I think maybe, as I said before, it's also because in Pakistan, again, there's very less awareness about it. That's why people get intimidated. But many people are already practicing it. I've met so many product designers or UX designers who are often, when they're researching also for making a product better or making a new product, they're often thinking about these things, and they often inquire, okay, how will this happen? How will the person register a complaint later? How will the driver or a rider behave with them? But we just don't know how to term it. So service design is something that a lot of us are inherently doing anyway. And then I think with time also, this is changing, and with online courses coming up, and with a lot of people in Pakistan practicing service design slowly and gradually. I think it's becoming more well known, and then it's also being taught in very few schools. I know of NAST, I know of IVS, and obviously Habib University is also having a big focus on it in terms of human-centered design and service design. So basically, people don't need to be intimidated because the principles of human-centered design, where you research and then you design for people, that's the same for UX and for service design. It's just that in service design, the research becomes slightly more extensive because there's a lot more stakeholders that you want to cover in any organization. Even if it's a startup, there are many people. You want to go talk to the marketing department, the finance department, the IT department, the design department, the product team. Then you want to go and research with different type of users or customers as well. So the research just becomes a little bit more extensive. But for anybody who is already practicing this in their as a product designer, they can definitely very easily learn it. Like, it's not something that should be difficult to learn. It just takes time, but it's a very interesting field in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Because basically, it all ends up solving a problem that exists
Yeah,
in the company or the product.
yeah,
But those problems are those problems which actually which people neglect them, and they are intangible mostly. So
yeah,
a process and a how to deal with the customers, which are not seen and which are not in the digital product inside there. So, for example, delivering your card in a bank. So the process of it and opening your account, the process and each and everything.
exactly. And there are many more examples as well. Like, if I give a local example, Food Panda is one that the in-app experience, mostly, like most people that I've met or talked to, the in-app experience is good. They're fine with it.
Yeah,
There are photos
exactly.
there, you choose something. But outside of the app, how the rider behaves with you or the person who's delivering it, are they able to read the map? Sometimes they have too many things, or maybe there's sometimes there are very less riders in an area. So if you call the restaurant, they said that the food is ready, but the food panda rider is not here to pick it up. So all those service efficiency things and training aspects and the relationship between the rider and the customer, are they calling again and again, are they not able to come upstairs? Sometimes they tell you that, okay, come downstairs. If does the how can we incorporate the culture of tipping those riders? All of that is service design. The same way, if I take the example of ride hailing apps like Uber or Careem, this is an issue that is coming up a lot recently, that within the app the experience is fine, but outside of the app
Yes.
the drivers are not trained to use Google Maps, or maybe sometimes the customers are rude with them. So how do you make sure that both the customer or the user as well as the driver or the captain both are trained in a nice way to be cordial with each other, to be respectful of each other? So those are things that are being neglected. And I don't know if you know of this. There's a group on Facebook called Voice of Customer. So I would suggest that anybody in Pakistan who wants to become a service designer should go read the reviews on Voice of Customer. So people come and
Yeah,
talk about
definitely, guys.
service.
Do join that.
Yeah, people come and complain about all sorts of services there, maybe restaurants, maybe online, retail stores, and as well as Food Panda, Kareem, all, and most of the complaints are related to the service and not about the app or the website. So that shows you the need of service designers today in Pakistan, that nobody is thinking about these. And if people think about it, businesses think about it in just in terms of their own efficiency, but not in terms of the happiness of their stakeholders.
Exactly, that's so true. And even I have experienced this thing many times, especially when I check that mark in Kareem or Uber that I'm gonna pay you with my credit, not cash. And
Yeah,
usually my rides are ignored. They're
yeah,
rejected.
yeah.
And once I asked one of the driver, and he said that uh, because we are paid late, and that's why we don't usually accept this credit and we accept cash. So
Yeah,
these kind of problems are usually neglected, and we should be putting some time and thoughts on these kind of things.
true, very true.
Yes. So how can we understand that the existing local challenges or problems, that there's a say that when you understand a problem completely and correctly, it means you already have a solution in your mind. So, how does service design help us in overcoming these local challenges that we are facing nowadays with the help of this domain of ours, service
Hmm.
design?
That's a very interesting question. I think, as with all sorts of design research that we practice, often if somebody hires service designers and says this is the issue, you shouldn't take it for face value. So often, and this is something that I don't like, that often people who have been running businesses, they say that we know the user, we know our company, we know all the problems. They do know
Yes,
a lot of them, but they may not know all of them. So them claiming that we have identified four problems and this is the most important one of them, so you should work on it. So that's not the approach that they should take with service designers, because when we come in as a third party, unbiased, or at least with less bias, I won't say that we are completely unbiased, it's impossible. But if we have less bias and then we do research with all different stakeholders, users, external third party stakeholders that may be involved who are making policies or something, so we may be able to identify other challenges that the organizations, the people who are running them, may not have identified. So that is one value that service design brings, that a lot of unidentified challenges. Because if the employee goes directly to the owner and tells them, they may think that they may get fired. So sometimes they may be afraid of voicing certain concerns related to the tasks that they are assigned, or the efficiency of their tasks, or how departments work with each other. But then it's also a difficult task for service designers to build that rapport with them, that they can trust you, and then you also assure them that what they say will be made anonymous and then shared with the people who are running the business. So that way, it's service design can be a very useful team, whether you build it in house or whether you hire external service designers. They can be that bridge between the top, most the C level people in a company, and all the other stakeholders and the users. Because often we have a lot of our biases, and our previous experiences are just telling us, okay, this is a problem, but this was a problem that was visible to us, and then there are these five problems which are the root causes, but we weren't able to see them. So with extensive, and then with service design, people also have to be patient, that it can't, service designers can't come and in 4 days change everything. It takes a lot
true.
of time. Like
It's
most
invisible.
projects, yeah, most projects that I have done take a lot of time in terms of research. Like you have to spend between minimum 2 weeks to maximum 3-4 months just doing research based on how large the organization is, or how large the department or the problem is that you're working with. Then you identify all the stakeholders, then you interview them, and based on that you anonymize the insights, you share them with the business, and then based on those insights that we have shared, then together we come up with new ideas on how to intervene with them. And the reason why I'm not saying solutions is because I think that solution is a very misleading word, especially when you come to larger level design like service design. Because we are all humans, and it's
Exactly.
very, if we were such good people who could solve everything, there would be no problems in the world right now, right? So when we claim too much that we solve things, it's a misleading thing. We should say that we intervene in a problem, and our intervention needs to be net positive. What that means is that there will always be some negative aspects. If you talk about the any sort of innovation that has happened in the last 20-30 years, whether that be the internet, social media, smartphones, there have been a lot of positive aspects, but there have also been negative aspects, right? So no engineer, no designer, no businessman can come up with something that has only positive aspects and no negative aspects. That if you're doing positively for humans, often you're destroying the environment in terms of ecology, in terms of, or maybe uh, in terms of finances, something is going wrong. So there's so many aspects to it that no intervention can be only positive. So then, as service designers, we propose interventions and we try to anticipate that what would be the negative aspects of it, and we try to mitigate them. We can never erase them completely. But I think this is the value that service design can bring to the local challenges in Pakistan. That a lot of whether especially government services, and that's something that I really want to work on someday if I get a chance, inshallah. That government
Inshallah.
services like voting, or getting a passport made, these are very important services which have a lot of people coming and using them, but they're often made really inefficient. And obviously, I've seen that in the past few years, things have improved a lot. A lot of processes have become simpler, but still, in terms of overall process point of view, I think they can be made very simple, especially when I think about elections and voting. People who are disabled, it's difficult for them to vote. In certain cases where women are not allowed to leave their houses, it's difficult for them to vote. So, how can we enable them to vote? How can we reduce inequalities? How can we make it a more democratic system? So I think service designers can also bring value to government services, and that's something that's being done in the UK a lot. So in UK they have a design council, and they hire a lot of service designers, especially for their health services and for other governmental services as well. So we can definitely get inspired from there as well.
This is actually really interesting to hear that there's never a solution. There are always positive and negative aspects to everything, and that's a quite interesting fact. And after the thing, the problem that we have discussed about the government services, usually what I see is that accessibility is always neglected. Not
Yes.
always, but usually it's neglected.
Yeah.
Maybe it is also neglected in our usually day-to-day digital products. And apart from those digital products, the services that you have talked in polling stations or the passports and other stuff. So how do you think that we can overcome? Because the research on service design, it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience and maybe real professionals that can go through and pinpoint out there those pain points of the customers. So that patient, how do you convince someone that, hey, you have to be patient, we are working on it, and we will be having some results at the end?
Okay. So first, I'll talk about accessibility. In terms of, as you mentioned, that accessibility is often ignored both at the digital level and beyond it. The reason that I have identified that is ignored at the digital level is that most designers are equipped with very fancy tools. We have a very fancy screen. We may have a very high resolution iMac or any other laptop, and then we have very fancy phones where we open Figma Mirror. We're designing something. We look at how it looks in the phone. And we're like perfect, but accessibility is ignored because we don't see it in the kind of phone that the user will be using it, or looking at the app. So if we have a very high res 7,000 or 5,000 rupee smartphone, and then the person is standing in the sunlight, and maybe the person also has weak eyesight. So when they see really small text and very less contrast in colors, they won't be able to see anything. They're trying to call maybe a cab, or maybe trying to send money. But the product itself, the digital product, works well on fancy phones, but it doesn't work well on average devices. So, in terms of accessibility for product design, I think that's one thing that designers should be more cognizant of. And some of them are. I'm not saying that all of them do this, but this is something that I've noticed. And then, in terms of service design, it's also a very tricky place to be in, because you also have to think about the business goals, because as a service designer you're also helping the business achieve their goals or be remain in their budget and everything. At the same time, you are definitely an advocate for people, whether that's internal stakeholders or whether that's users. And for all of them, accessibility comes into play, that who gets access to a service. Like, can someone who doesn't have internet at their home, or maybe they can't afford internet packages or anything, how can we make a service accessible to them? One interesting example of this is by Kia, that you could just give a missed call on a number and they would call you back, and you could call a ride, something like that. So that was very
Yes,
nice.
that's incredible.
So if somebody doesn't have internet, they just call on a helpline, and they can get a bike here, and they pick the location automatically from how where you're calling from, and they send the bike at least near you, if not exactly at that position. So that's a good example of accessibility. But you're right, there's definitely a lot of work that can still be done. And coming to the second part where you were asking about convincing people, I think that's the dilemma of designers anyway, right? We are always trying to convince people about the value of design, about the value of research, about the ROI overall. So one way that I do it is by showing the impact of my previous projects. That's one thing one can use. Also, you can take out similar case studies from around the world and show them to whatever your own bosses or whoever you're trying to pitch service design to. So a lot of the work is being done in service design in Brazil, especially, and then Malaysia, Indonesia as well, and India as well. And in a lot of ways, the population and the target audience, in a lot of ways, are very similar to Pakistan, right? Egypt, Philippines, India, Brazil, Malaysia, Indonesia, highly populated, highly congested metropolitan cities, very similar to Lahore and Karachi in a lot of ways. Multi-ethnic people, a lot of people from different ethnicities and cultures living there, speaking different languages. So one way that could be interesting and convincing people is that you take out case studies from there and you show them the value that the business invested this much money into their own service design team or design research, and this is what the ROI was. So, and sometimes even agar service design की case studies nahi mile, just the case studies of design research or the human or any application of human-centered design can work as well, because that's essentially what you're doing in a service.
That's really true, but it's really hard to convince people through these kind of things. But those people who have some kind of knowledge that they are trying, at least they're trying to understand, they end up solving the problems. And from your point, Baikia's story of the calls, I often actually think about the banks, which are maybe, for example, if you have lost your car, and if you have lost your car and you don't have your balance in your phone to call, and their complaint calls are also not free,
True.
and you're stuck. I don't know whatever you're going to do, but it's a bad time to be there.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of banks, if I start ranting, it will be a 2 hour rant just on banks and their services. Because even though being a relatively tech savvy person and knowing UX design and service design, I still come into so many problems with my bank. So I asked them to change. I asked them to change my phone number. They said you have to go to the branch and do it. I went to the branch. I filled a whole form. They took my thumbprints again just for changing my number. And later, in their system, in many places, my old number is still there. So a lot of things still go to my own number, even though I went to a lot of process to change my number. So it's just absurd. I don't know why these things are that way. Maybe clients such as me are not, profitable enough for them to invest. I don't know what's the problem, but
Maybe, but we should be having a thought
yeah,
on these kind of services
banking
that we should
services
be
really,
improving.
yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that now we have fintechs like Sada to save our lives.
So, how would you go about building expertise for your designs, service design team within your team, or you're going to consult someone from outside? So, how the cost works and the effort?
So I think building capability as a service designer is a lot about practicing. So start from small aspects of it. Like don't start with a complete organization. Think about if you're in a product company, you can take one aspect of the product. Like if there's one feature, for example, again, I might give some example of Kareem. Kareem has multiple features in it now, right? It's a super app. So we might just take one feature of it and then we think about it that what is the in-app experience and what is the experience outside of it. And whenever you take interviews or usability testing with your users, you also ask them about other aspects of the service. So slowly you will start to learn things about where they're facing problems in the service and what are their suggestions. So another thing that's very interesting about service designers is that they not only ask about or inquire about the challenges that people are facing, but what they think is a way to overcome those challenges. So, because people have often very interesting jugaads or very interesting shortcuts that they're using already, or maybe they have very good suggestions in mind, but just because nobody ever asked them, they never said it. So, if you collect all the suggestions that different people are saying, even those suggestions themselves could be really valuable for the company to implement in the next 5 or 10 years, if not immediately. And then there's some books about service design that I found really useful. There's a series called This is Service Design Thinking, and then there's another one of the same series called This is Service Design Doing. Those both books are like the Bible of service design. They have a very good uh, summary of everything that happens. They have a lot of case studies, they have a lot of examples. So those really helped me get to know service design more. Then there's another book called Designing the Invisible. That book is also very nice. And then, as I said before, Interaction Design Foundation now has a course on service design as well. So they have a yearly membership, and it's not that expensive. So I would urge designers that
Yeah,
if their company can get those memberships for them, they can definitely. Their design research courses are also very good, and UX are obviously perfect, and then service design courses are also very good. There's
I
only
think
one, but it's
it's like 12 or $14 just per year. It's not much costly.
yeah, it's not costly. It's I'm not sure. I think it was $100 for a year, as far as I remember, which is about
Yeah,
10,
sorry,
15.
per month. Yeah, per
Yeah, yeah,
month.
yeah, yeah. So
Per
it's
month.
about between $100 to $120. So if
Exactly.
you can afford it yourself, or if the company can buy you a subscription, you can definitely learn from that. But otherwise, as I said, it's all about practice. You start with practicing slowly within wherever you're working, and then you can slowly show that value to the people around you as well. That and it would often happen to me. Sometimes I would be giving a company consultancy for the UX, but when I would interview users, users would talk less about the app and more about the other aspects of the service. So it comes naturally because so it's us who are in the organization who have a differentiation कि मैं सिर्फ product देखता हूँ and I don't look at other things. In a user's mind, all of it is one bubble. They don't differentiate between the
True.
app and the rest of the
The whole
stuff. For
product
them, it's
actually.
yeah.
Yes.
And most of the people that I know who have stopped using certain popular services is because of the real life experiences and not the in-app experiences. So if somebody was really rude to them, or if their money was cut but it was never reimbursed, whether that's a bank, whether that's a food delivery service, whether that's ride-hailing service, most people stop using the service because of those experiences. So, the more we notice them, the more we'll have customer retention.
Especially I've seen some international products and companies, especially Airbnb. I really admire that they have really put their thoughts on service design, and they have
Yeah,
come up with great solutions. Like they even check their accommodations and hotels cleanliness, and there are those attributes written transparently to the users that they can see before booking things. But when you're using a ride hailing app, you don't see that how clean is the car, or how
yeah,
good the environment inside the car is, and how good the communication of the driver is. But still, we being a designers have to put some thoughts on these kind of things as well. It does not, I think it does not matter. You should have, you should be a service designer, or you can be also a user experience designer, but you should be the one solving or pointing out these problems, that these are also problems that we have
I
to
completely
overlook
agree.
them.
Exactly, I completely agree. It just needs a creative person, and the reason why. So, service design is also very similar to business process management. But the only differentiating factor is that the people who are doing it are more creative in nature. They're not just focused on the business's goals or profits. They're equally inclined towards the stakeholders' problems or making the users happy as they are about the business. So you're right that
True.
nobody needs to have the title of a service designer or have years of experience in service design to be a service designer. All of us can practice it in one way or the other. And as I said, that we can start from small things in the with the product or the organization that we're working with, and slowly build our own expertise.
Actually, how I think about the term designer it actually means that you're a problem solver. You're not something who design something visual, but you're a problem solver. And being a problem solver, service design for you is just another chapter of the book that you have to learn. It's just another skill. But again, we being designers, we should not be neglecting these things which are a part of from digital products, but we should be also putting some thoughts and some time on them, and we should
So in
encourage
certain
our companies and products.
Definitely, definitely. In certain cases, obviously, the problem or the organization is so complex that you may want to hire really accomplished service designers either to come and train you or maybe give a consultancy. But as you said, that we all are already looking at the problem, already researching a lot of times, already framing the problem in certain ways, already coming up with interventions. So there's no reason why we shouldn't add this to our own, expertise or our own skill set.
True.
And it's a lot about communication as well. That because in service design you're dealing with the business itself or the organization itself, as well as all the internal and external stakeholders, as well as the user, the customer, consumer, whoever they are. So it's a lot about having very good communication skills, how to take interesting interviews, how to read between the lines, how to build a rapport with people so that they trust you enough to tell you things that they haven't maybe reflected about a task or a department before, or a feature or a service before.
Exactly. And I would also encourage my fellow designers that are actually aware of these terms and these skills to aware other people, because in Pakistan we don't have that much awareness, and we should be contributing to the community that has given a lot of things to us. So we should be giving something back to them, and we should be trying to engage more and more to webinars like these, or some articles and some other communities there where we can find some knowledge about the new uprising skills and attributes.
Completely agreed. Yes, the service design is something that we need to learn ourselves and then spread the knowledge to others. I completely agree.
True. So now we have actually understood what is service design and how it helps the community, how it helps the company, and how it is built. There are many agencies and companies which are reluctant to spend their time and finances on service design. So, what is the ROI of service design, and how can it help products and large corporate level companies to solve customer needs and their pain points? Is it really worth to put a lot of time and a lot of finances separately, other than the experienced designers on service design and on service designers?
Well, you're asking a service designer, so I will
Yeah,
obviously say yes. Because,
that's a
well,
nice thing now.
I want to get paid. I will say yes. But no, jokes apart, I definitely see the value in this investment. And the reason for that is that often, as I talked about customer retention, if customer retention is better, if the customer is not leaving your service for another service, or if they're coming back to your service often and often, that means a lot of profit for any organization, especially in a country like Pakistan, where each service has millions and billions of users, because just because of the sheer population that we have, and a lot of people who are young and who are inclined to try different services, and they're also inclined to switch the moment that they see something is even slightly better than the other, they'll switch.
The
So
just switch, yes.
how do you keep them to one service, whether that's a ride hailing service, whether that's a bank, whether that's a laundry service? It could be anything. It's hard to retain customers in today's age, and marketing is one aspect of it, but having a better experience for them. So sometimes all the offerings of different services would be the same, and even the cost would more or less be the same. But if one has slightly better experience, people would be even willing to pay a slightly more money for having that amazing experience. If five services cost 10 rupees each, one has a better experience and it costs like 12 or 13 rupees, people will go for that. A lot of
True,
us will go
true.
for that. So in
Completely
in
agree.
terms of that, businesses today, because there's so much competition in the market, having a good experience overall for your user as well as for your internal stakeholders. So जिस तरह हम customer retention की बात कर रहे थे, उस तरह employee retention भी आजकल is not easy. Like there's so
Yes.
much happening that if your employees are not happy, if there's not enough efficiency, if everything is mismanaged, they'll just leave and they'll find another job. A lot of them will. So if you have a service design team in-house or you hire somebody to do that and you have a better experience for both your employees, internal stakeholders, as well as your user, that means that you're good to go. You have to spend less on hiring. You have more profits in terms of the customers that you have and new customers that are coming. So the benefit of a great experience is that word of mouth marketing बहुत होती है. So if your users are happy, they'll go and tell other people that, oh my god, I use the service because I'm so happy with it, and you should also use it. And one example that I can personally give is of a laundry service, which is called Washer. What they do is that you just tell them what day you want your laundry to be picked. They come to your house, they count the laundry, they weigh the laundry, and the payment is by weight and not each piece of clothing, which a dhobi usually does. Then they take it, and in 3 days your laundry is ready, and it comes, and then you can choose a slot in which they deliver it to you, and and all the clothes are very neatly folded. All the towels are in one packet. All the other clothes are in another packet. If you have given special instructions about something, that's separate. If you want something ironed, that's also there. So I think that's one example of a great service. And
That's really incredible.
just because my experience has been so good, I have been like marketing them for free for the past few years because just I am such a happy customer, right? That it's so convenient for me that I call them and everything is done, everything is neat. I've never had a missing product. I've never had clothes being torn or being dyed in the wrong color, which happens with other laundry services. So with service design, the ROI may not be very simple to calculate. उसका एक मसला है. And the issue is that a lot of interventions that service designers come up with are long term. So if I go and work with a
Yeah.
bank, there may be things that they can do in 6 months, but there may be a lot of suggestions that I've given them that it may take them 5 or 10 years to apply. And just because they don't see results in the short term, they may think that okay, this was useless. But they need to understand that service designers will give both short term and long term, and low cost and high cost, and low impact and high impact ideas. And then it's up to, and they can also help you implement them. So abroad, a lot of service design consultancies are usually 2 or 3 years. So because the first few months are research, and then you come up with the interventions, and the rest of the 2.5 years you are helping that organization implement the changes that you've suggested. So
True.
in
And
Pakistan, if they learned that the long-term impact would be so great, then if people just understand that, it would be great. But I also struggle that how do I convince someone? So that's an eternal question, as I said before, for designers, and how do we convince people?
it's a long story, and it's a lot of discussion.
Yeah,
And I usually simply say that the peace of mind comes from a great process. The
yeah,
greater and smoother the process, the easier the life gets. So we are about to finish, and we have just last topic, which basically, in this pandemic, when where you have saw that shopping malls being closed, and there are a lot of things being closed, approximately everything, and banks, shopping malls, and everything, and our daily way of daily life changed.
yeah.
And this now at this time, I think service design can help to ease our daily lives, and this whole pandemic has redefined the discipline. How do you see that thing?
I completely agree with you. I think like almost all disciplines, this has also been
Yeah.
redefined in a lot of ways. One value that I think is now it's easier because of all the collaborative online tools like Mural or Miro. I know that you know them, but for
Yeah.
other people who may not know them, these are just online whiteboards where you can make sticky notes or you can make arrows and people can work collaboratively. So such tools, and then things like Zoom and Google Meet and Microsoft Teams, with all of these, now if an organization is even working in 2 or 3 cities, a service designer can sit in one city and remotely still be able to, take interviews or come up with suggestions, have workshops. So one thing that I may have not mentioned earlier, that a lot of work of service designers is also workshop facilitation. That you become that facilitator who brings people from different departments or different hierarchies onto one table, and you give them all an equal say, and then you facilitate workshops maybe around just exploring the current business space, about exploring the current issues, then coming up with ideas and how to implement those ideas. So that facilitation earlier, even I used to think that with service design you need to be present in person, but now
True.
I've realized that you can do a lot of things remotely. But again, it depends on the service. Some services, because in certain services, a lot of the stuff is happening in person, so it's impossible to do, or maybe really difficult to do things remotely, or at least research or observe them remotely, because a lot of interactions are happening in real life. But in certain organizations and in certain products and services, you can definitely apply service design. And with the pandemic, even if you're in another city, you can still do it. Another thing is that which we have seen overall around the world and in Pakistan as well, that people are moving towards digital products and services. As you said, that banks are closed, shopping malls are closed. So now their experiences are more related to digital products or
Digital
services,
product.
like maybe a website, e-commerce websites, or different products where the apps that they download in the phone. So then that means that there needs to be even better synergy between UX designers and service designers, or UX designers knowing service design, because e-commerce website itself has a good, and e-commerce website may have a good experience, but if the product is not delivered to the customer, they will not
Yeah.
come here again. So now just somebody, and that is again a complaint that I see a lot, that different businesses use certain delivery partners, and those delivery partner companies, their service or tracking service is often not working. So when the product is not delivered to the customer, or maybe they paid by card but the product never reached them. So now it's more than ever that we need to have a better alignment between what's happening digitally and outside of the digital world, because
Between all the
otherwise,
parties.
yeah, because being a service designer, still don't pay by card, because I know that if I pay by card, things will never arrive. Whether that's food or whether that's clothes, most of the times they don't arrive, and then your money is just lost. And then the reimbursement process is 6 months long, and later they give you a voucher and they don't give you your money back. So if I can't trust a service, even though I'm a service designer myself, how can an average person, trust it? They won't. So we need to ensure that our service is good enough that people trust it.
True. So we are, thank you so much. And we are actually coming to an end, and we will be taking questions from our social media. So our person has probably gathered some questions. So I think they are displayed on the screens, Manahil.
Yeah.
What are some of examples of service design excellence in Pakistan? Oh, that's really nice.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'll mention two companies that I know of. One is Designist, where I've also worked before for 2 years. If you go to Designist website, they have a lot of projects about services, and I've worked on a few of them myself as well, with hospitals, with co-working spaces, and then they also did some projects with banks and insurance companies that I was not personally a part of, but I saw that those projects had a lot of impact. Then there's a company called Ideate in Islamabad, so you can also go and see their work. And I've also worked a little bit with them, but they also have a lot of very high impact service design projects. The problem is that because you're working with a particular company, you can't publish service design case studies completely on the internet, right? Because it's about the lack or maybe the challenges in a particular company, and they don't want it to be public. So that's sort of a problem, because you might, even with Designist or Ideate or any other company which practices service design, you might not find very detailed analysis there, because that all is often private and under non-disclosure agreements. And then I also know that Jazz and Telenor both have service designers working with them, and they work on
Yeah.
the service delivery experience of Easy Pesa and other things. So those are also very good examples because telecom companies are in a lot of ways doing a very good job of delivering a lot of services to their users.
True. And I assume the person was actually asking about the products that we have in our country.
Sorry.
And the next question is research for 6 to 12 months and implementation for 2, 3 years. Is it not totally against agile principles?
But you see, if uh, that is I say that when I mean a very large project. For example, a very large bank in Pakistan, maybe somebody like UBL or HPL, if they're doing a if they're applying service design to all of their services, they can't do it in 1 month. Obviously,
Yeah.
it will take a lot of time, even in within one aspect of the bank, maybe just consumer banking, and then they have corporate banking as well. So even in within one aspect, or if you take an insurance company as well, there's so much happening that just for a third party person to come and understand it, or even if they make a service design team within their organization, them to understand all the processes is the first step, and then the second step is improving those processes, and the third step is implementing those processes. So
And in
in
the
that
end, you get the
sense,
results.
yeah, so in that sense, it's long, but I don't think it's against agile principles. I just think that the scale is too big compared to a digital product. But in a lot of smaller projects, you can even do the job in like 3, 4 months. So it completely depends on the scale of the organization and the scale of your
And
project.
stakeholders. The more the
Yeah,
stakeholders, the more the research
exactly,
takes time.
exactly.
The next one we have is from Hashim. And do you have any tips on how someone can transition from being a UX designer to a service designer? Yeah, this is something that is going to be asked a lot on our platform.
Interesting. So one way, as I said before, is that you start practicing wherever you are. Like when you are doing user interviews or observations or diary studies, any sort of research that you're employing, also ask the users about other aspects of the service apart from the app or any digital products that they currently use, even if it's yours or if it is your product or not. And I've already mentioned some books and some online resources, so you can go learn from that. But the best tip on transitioning is to just practice. So another thing you can do is maybe take on just projects for your own self in free time. So think about any service. For example, uh, there's a service near me which is delivering something. Maybe you know grocery stores who you call and they deliver something to you. Just take anything
Airlift.
and go take some interviews in your free time. You know, just the same way that people often build a UX portfolio, that they give themselves prompts that how can I make Easy Paisa better, or how can I make the Pakistan Railway website better. The same way you can give yourself prompts, and they can be small projects, and then you can do go and implement, try to get interviews, try to learn methods. So there are certain tools that service designers use. One is a service blueprint, then the stakeholder mapping. So you can go learn those tools or methods from books and then apply them yourself, and slowly that will make you more experienced. And another is to focus on your communication skills, reading between the lines, as I said before, interviewing people, seeing what they're saying, and also noting what they're not saying. So
Yeah,
all of that
exactly. The
really
behavior.
matters. Yes, and how do you make people comfortable? And you should really enjoy talking to people if you want to be a service designer, because a lot of this is just
True.
about talking and
Interviews.
analyzing. Yes.
So we will definitely try to mention the resources you have mentioned in the description.
Sure.
And we have another comment, which is by Sundas. What are the characteristics of a well-designed service systems? Oh, service systems. That's really interesting.
So there are some principles that have been written by the book in the book that I was mentioning. I will just open those, and those are the best principles. So I don't think I should make them up. I should just go through the ones that are
Absolutely.
existing. So they are basically a service, well-designed service is human-centered. It's co-creative, which means that nobody has designed it alone. Many people have been designing it together. So creativity has been coming from different people. So any good service is co-creative, and any good service is also sequential. Like the steps have been well thought about. that what comes first, what will come next, what will be happening at each step, what will be the touch point at each step, will it be digital or not, will it be a button that somebody presses, will it be a screen that somebody sees. Then it's about evidential. Evidential means that you have evidence at each point. Sometimes you book an appointment via call for a doctor and you get a text message. So that evidence itself that your appointment has been booked, you get an email, you get a receipt. So a good, well-designed service has evidences for almost each step of the way. Then it's also holistic, that it takes a larger point of view, not only in terms of the user experience, but also sometimes in terms of the environmental impact. Like a lot of services are now sustainable because they also think about their impact on animals, on the earth, on the climate. That's also something. So these principles are coming from the book that I mentioned earlier, which is This is Service Design Doing. So you can definitely go look them up.
And the next one is adding to Sundar's question, what are the metrics we can use to measure success of service systems?
Okay. So it varies from project to project. Like in certain cases, like I or once worked on a project, service design project with a hospital, where the waiting time of the uh, people, the patient, and the attendant, whoever was coming, was a lot. So for them, the success was the metric of success was that if we can reduce the waiting time, right? And we gave them a lot of suggestions on how they can do that based on a lot of research. In another project, it might be the number of new customers that we get. In another project, it might be the number of customers that return back to us. In another project, it may be about the time or the steps that it takes for somebody to use the service. And that's often a very good one. And that's something that I think SadaPay is also focused on. I was recently going through the app that just reducing the time that it takes and the steps that it takes to sign up to a digital wallet or making a money account of some sort, right? So it may vary from organization to organization, but usually time, money, are these both are the things that are often measured in most of the services and projects in one way or the other.
We have one more. And what is the roadmap to get started with service design? Like in UX, we have various aspects like empathy map, mind maps, sketches, wireframes, etc. How does it look like in service design? I
That's
think
an amazing
the whole
question.
process.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks, Sohaib, for asking. So first, you understand the business's needs. So first, you go in, and the people who are hiring you or who are making this team, you understand what are the things that, in their opinion, need to be improved on, or if they have certain goals that we want to have 2x customers or 3x customers in 5 years, or whatever their goals are. You first understand that. Then you do stakeholder mapping, where you understand all the various stakeholders involved in a service. And then there's another version of a stakeholder map, which is called an ecosystem map, where you not only have the stakeholders mapped out, that who are the primary ones, who are the secondary ones, but you also have relationships marked out between them. That this person gives this person money, this person sends this email or something. So that's an ecosystem map. Then you start doing research, you start doing interviews with the I personally start with the internal stakeholders of a business or organization first. Based on understanding the whole process and where they think the problems are, we make maps which are called service blueprints. So service blueprints are basically extensions of customer journey maps. So in a customer journey map, you basically have that this person comes to the website, they see this, they order this, they receive this. So that's a customer journey map. So if we have all the customer journeys of internal stakeholders all on the same map, that will become a blueprint. For example, when this person clicks on the website and orders, inventory wala person, they go and take this thing out, then they give it to TCS, TCS delivers it, the TCS writer calls it. So what is everyone doing at each point in time? So that is a service blueprint, and that's one of the most important tools and the unique factors about service design, that it maps everything out on one page. Like it's usually a very large sort of a map or a diagram in which all relationships and all interactions between different stakeholders are mapped. as well as the time taken for each of these things, and often even the problems are also sort of mapped on that. Once you have made the service blueprints, you continue the research, then you also interview the user customers, and then you also interview external stakeholders if needed. Then you synthesize the research, and then after synthesizing the research, you make how might we statements. Based on how might we statements, you will do co-creative ideation. What that means is that you won't come up with ideas yourself. You'll bring people to a table, you'll sit with them, you'll tell them that this was a research, these are the how might we statements that we have made. Together now we'll do ideation and come up with different ideas on how we can intervene. Then once those ideas are, when you have gathered those ideas, then you shortlist them, and then you start thinking, detailing them out. So first they were just two lines on a sticky note. So you detail them out, and once you detail them out, you if it's supposed to be, maybe one of the ideas is that you digitize something that was being done manually. So that's when UX wala sara process of apply kar likhte hain. Maybe
Correct.
maybe you need maybe you need a spatial change. So you may hire interior designers or architects, or maybe work with them at some point. You may define some policy changes, and then you will work with the business that how will that exact policy or that new rule or that new sort of any sort of a new strategy, how will that work. So once, and it all depends on what kind of ideas you come up with, and then you help the organization or the business apply these ideas. So implementation kaise hogi, pilot hoga, फिर हम maybe if you take the example of a ride hailing app, they might implement it in one part of one city first and see how it goes, and then learn from it. So it's again, it's may the same as UX. A lot of testing is involved. That you design something, you may test it,
The whole
then you,
iterative process.
yeah. So you iterate, and then you do a pilot, and then you test again, and then eventually you help the organization implement it throughout wherever, in no matter how many cities they are in or how many countries they are in. So that's why it takes so long as well. So it's a extensive project. Minimum it can take 4 weeks, and maximum it can take between 3 to 5 years or 7 years as well. Who knows? Depending on how large the organization is.
Thank you so much, Manahil. And I think that was it. And we have no more questions. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for attending us and to be with us today with us. And thank you so much, Manahil. It was really an honor to be with you here and for us for enhancing our great knowledge and creating this great awareness in our community for the service design. And thank you. I again thanks everybody and take care and stay safe and take care of your loved ones. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Basit. It really means a lot. Thank you for inviting me. I had fun. Thank you for asking very interesting and difficult questions.
That's life that you have to deal. Thank you so much, Manahil. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.